Luck is a convenient excuse for those who fail to see the threads they have left untied. The world does not hand out fortune as if it were a gift, it hands out consequence. Those who whisper of luck merely veil their inaction, their misjudgments, their ignorance of timing and strategy. Power does not tremble in anticipation of chance. It bends only to those who understand the rhythm of calculation, who move with the precision of a predator stalking prey, measuring every breath, every step, every weakness. To believe in luck is to surrender the mind to the chaos of hope. To act without calculation is to invite destruction dressed as misfortune. Observe the court, the office, the council chamber, the spaces where influence accumulates and dissipates. Every gesture, every word, every silence carries weight beyond the eyes of the uninitiated. A leader who mistakes serendipity for insight will discover betrayal in the guise of loyalty, failure clothed in the garb of inevitability. Success is never a windfall. It is the careful architecture of anticipation, the patient excavation of advantage, the relentless inspection of those who would see you undone. The world rewards those who can read the currents beneath the surface, who can discern the shape of opportunity before it crystallizes. Fear is not to be shunned. It is to be understood, measured, and wielded. Loyalty is not given, it is extracted through perception and circumstance. Those who tremble at the mention of these truths are already defeated, for the machinery of power does not pause for conscience. Betrayal is a constant companion, a shadow that mirrors every ambition. To ignore it is to invite ruin. To confront it is to assert control. The ruler must cultivate the foresight to anticipate treachery, the detachment to act without hesitation, the clarity to see people not as moral beings but as instruments of influence and calculation. Ambition is neither noble nor ignoble. It is a force to be harnessed or contained. The careful architect of strategy does not permit ambition to flourish untempered, for it is both a tool and a threat. Manipulation is not deception for its own sake. It is the alignment of reality with intention. The wise understand that appearances carry power equal to deeds. To sway perception is to command reality. To shape expectation is to forestall opposition. The theater of governance is not an arena of virtue but a crucible of consequence, and every actor plays a role imposed by circumstance, threat, and opportunity. Success is the product of calculation, repeated, tested, refined. It emerges from the intersection of observation, anticipation, and decisive action. There is no accident in the accumulation of influence, no serendipity in the survival of ambition. Every alliance must be weighed, every word must be measured, every opportunity must be scrutinized as if the slightest error will invite collapse. The world rewards those who treat it as it is a domain of cause and effect, where misjudgment is punished and precision is exalted. Those who cling to the illusion of luck cannot see the subtle mechanics that govern outcomes. They imagine randomness where there is design, coincidence where there is calculation, fate where there is foresight. To master success is to see beyond the mirage of chance, to recognize that every victory is built upon the deliberate orchestration of events, the disciplined application of insight, the courage to act when others hesitate. The mind that surrenders to luck is weak. The mind that controls reality through strategy is sovereign. The modern world, fractured and fluid, reveals the necessity of unflinching calculation more clearly than any battlefield or court of old. Power is no longer constrained to palaces or councils. It flows through networks, through perception, through the subtle leverage of information. To navigate this landscape is to act with foresight, to measure influence, to anticipate reactions, to embrace the uncomfortable truth that success demands mastery over oneself as much as over circumstance. Those who survive, those who ascend, understand that luck is a lie whispered to comfort the complacent. They know that every decision, every gesture, every omission is a node in the network of consequence. Fortune favors not the idle but the vigilant. Victory is not handed down. It is carved, chiseled, and forged by those willing to see clearly, calculate precisely, and act without hesitation. To believe otherwise is to abdicate agency, to surrender the field before the battle has even begun. Every choice carries a weight invisible to the inattentive. Every hesitation is a fracture through which rivals both known and hidden, can exploit weakness. Power is not an abstract prize. It is a living architecture, constructed from perception, influence, and the relentless exercise of will. To navigate it is to embrace calculation as a constant companion. The mind that flinches at consequence cannot command. The mind that anticipates every motion of friend and foe alike transforms circumstance into opportunity. Success does not descend from fortune. It is hewn from observation, from patience, from the audacity to act when the tides of chance seem most indifferent. Those who cling to ideals of morality, who believe in the sanctity of virtue as a shield against adversity, are illusions themselves. In the theater of governance, appearances matter as much as action. The ruler who cannot bend perception to purpose is already exposed. To command is to understand that loyalty is conditional, fear is instructive, and every individual is guided less by principle than by self-interest. To ignore this truth is to invite betrayal. To internalize it is to wield inevitability. Every alliance, every gesture, every expression of intent must be measured, anticipated, and, when necessary, manipulated. The mind that overestimates trust is already defeated. Control is neither tyranny nor benevolence. It is the capacity to align reality with strategy. It requires a relentless assessment of human nature, the cold recognition that ambition and desire will never pause for principle. To govern without acknowledging this is to govern in fantasy. Every rumor, every whisper, every subtle shift of loyalty is a data point, a vector through which power moves or erodes. The modern ruler must see all currents at once, discerning the hidden motivations that guide action, discerning patterns in chaos, and acting decisively where others hesitate. The machinery of influence is indifferent to hesitation. Those who move first shape reality. Fear is a tool, not a curse. To inspire fear is not to invite hatred, but to cultivate respect and obedience. Yet fear alone is fragile. It must be balanced with calculated reward, with perception of opportunity, with the understanding that humans are guided by incentive as much as by dread. Loyalty cannot be decreed. It must be engineered through both reward and the subtle demonstration of power. Betrayal is inevitable, but it can be anticipated, mitigated, and at times employed. Every actor on the stage of influence is a potential threat and a potential instrument. Recognize both, and the mind moves from reaction to mastery. Ambition, when unchecked, is a fire that consumes indiscriminately. When directed, it is the engine of success. The ruler who cannot channel ambition, both their own and that of others, is adrift. Manipulation is not cruelty. It is the alignment of means to ends. Every perception, every expectation, every carefully constructed narrative becomes a lever through which reality can be moved. Appearances are as essential as deeds. The world is governed as much by perception as by action. To shape perception is to assert control over events, to preempt opposition before it manifests, to create inevitability where others see randomness. Calculation is the antidote to illusion. Every victory is the product of foresight, of meticulous arrangement, of understanding both the desires and the fears of those who surround you. There is no accident in the consolidation of influence, no coincidence in the survival of ambition. The world responds to those who measure, who anticipate, who act with precision. To surrender to luck is to relinquish power. To master calculation is to command it. Every opportunity is a node in a network of consequence. Every choice, a branching path of potential triumph or collapse. The modern landscape, fluid and fractured, demands a discipline of observation that exceeds the capacity of casual calculation. Power is diffuse, flowing through networks, through reputation, through perception as much as through action. To navigate it is to engage continuously, to assess constantly, to anticipate the interplay of desire, fear, and opportunity. Every action is amplified, every omission observed, every gesture interpreted. To succeed is to see the web of consequence in its entirety and to act where others can only react. Those who claim success is chance have surrendered to illusion. The truth is visible to those willing to look without flinching. Success is always the child of calculation, nurtured by observation, honed by patience, and seized by decisive action. The mind that embraces this truth transcends the randomness of circumstance. It creates reality from the raw material of human nature, bending ambition, fear, and loyalty to its designs. In this architecture, luck has no place. Only the precise application of strategy determines who rises and who falls. Power, once attained, is not a possession but a responsibility to reality itself. It must be maintained through vigilance, through the continuous shaping of perception, through the unrelenting anticipation of threat. Those who govern without this awareness are blind. Those who embrace it are architects of inevitability. Every decision, every alignment, every maneuver carries weight. To ignore any vector of influence is to invite collapse. To integrate all, to act without hesitation, is to command the currents of history itself. The ruler who understands these truths sees the world not as a place of morality or chance, but as a complex system of cause and effect, where mastery is the product of intellect applied without compromise. Luck is a myth invented by the unsuccessful. Fortune is obedient only to preparation, to calculation, to the relentless engagement with reality. To master success is to master oneself, to foresee the hidden movements of others, to manipulate circumstance with precision, and to act when hesitation would destroy opportunity. Every interaction is a calculation, every gesture a signal, every silence a declaration. To lead is to perceive the subtle rhythms of intention beneath the surface of action. Those who mistake civility for loyalty, politeness for compliance, or hesitation for weakness will discover that reality is indifferent to misunderstanding. The world does not pause for moral reflection. It moves with the inexorable logic of cause and effect, rewarding clarity, precision, and foresight. The ruler who hesitates becomes prey. The ruler who observes and acts becomes the architect of inevitability. Betrayal is not an anomaly. It is a constant. It lurks in the shadows of ambition, in the half-spoken promises, in the allegiance of those whose self-interest is a river beneath a placid surface. To ignore this is to court ruin. To anticipate it is to wield it as a tool. Every potential traitor is a vector of opportunity if understood. Every disloyal subject is a lesson in the fragility of assumption. The wise ruler calculates the cost of trust, measures the loyalty of allies, and orchestrates perception so that even the act of treachery may serve the larger design. Power is a living thing, fragile and voracious, demanding attention, maintenance, and strategy. It is not sufficient to seize it. One must understand the machinery that sustains it. Influence flows through networks of ambition, fear, desire, and expectation. To control is to understand these currents, to anticipate the pressures that will divert or strengthen them, to act decisively before the inertia of circumstance solidifies opposition. The successful do not wait for fortune. They bend events to their will, arranging circumstances so that inevitability favors their ascent. Fear and incentive are twin engines of influence. Fear is immediate, sharp, and decisive, a tool to shape compliance and attention. Incentive is slow, persistent, and subtle, a tool to bind loyalty and cultivate initiative. The ruler who masters both understands that human nature is neither consistent nor principled. It is reactive, malleable, and guided by perceived self-interest. Manipulation is not deception for pleasure. It is the alignment of reality with strategy. Every word, every act, every omission must be considered in terms of consequence. Every gesture, a lever in the machinery of control. Ambition is a force that can be harnessed or allowed to destroy. Those who underestimate its potency invite disorder. Those who master it gain inexhaustible energy for their designs. The careful ruler channels ambition their own and that of others, directing it toward calculated objectives, monitoring its excesses, and mitigating its threats. Success is rarely a solitary achievement. It emerges from the orchestration of ambitions, desires, and fears within the human network. Those who understand this play the game of power not with brute force alone, but with insight, anticipation, and the precision of execution. The illusion of luck is the refuge of the unprepared. The mind that attributes victory to chance refuses to examine the disciplined strategy beneath it. Reality does not bend for hope, it bends for foresight and action. Every opportunity is a node in a web of cause and effect, every decision a branching path toward dominance or collapse. To surrender to luck is to abdicate agency. To command circumstance through calculation is to assert sovereignty over the world as it is, not as one wishes it to be. Information is the currency of modern power. Knowledge of intention, observation of behavior, and interpretation of subtle cues constitute advantage. The ruler who cannot gather, synthesize, and act upon information is blind. The ruler who does is sovereign. Networks of influence, channels of communication, reputations, and perceptions, these are the battlegrounds upon which modern control is exercised. Timing, precision, and anticipation convert these tools into power. Hesitation in this domain is fatal. Clarity and action are survival. The architecture of success is not moral, it is structural. Every alliance is an equation of mutual interest. Every contract, spoken or unspoken, is a potential vector of influence. The ruler who ignores this sees loyalty as natural rather than constructed, trust as inherent rather than conditional, opportunity as accidental rather than engineered. This misunderstanding is fatal. To survive, one must construct reality with foresight, act with precision, and orchestrate perception so that inevitability follows from circumstance, not from chance. Those who master this calculus see the world as it is, a network of human desires, fears, ambitions, and perceptions. Nothing is random, nothing is sacred, nothing guaranteed. Every action, every observation, every reflection must be weighed for consequence. The successful do not wait for opportunity. They create it, they anticipate opposition, they act decisively when the currents of circumstance are favorable. To act without calculation is to be swept away. To act with calculation is to bend reality itself. Control is both art and science, requiring continuous vigilance and rigorous assessment. The ruler must not only respond to events but anticipate them, to see the patterns that underlie action, to orchestrate circumstance so that outcomes align with strategy. Fear, loyalty, ambition, perception, these are instruments, to be tuned, harmonized, and applied in concert. The one who masters this symphony shapes reality. The one who fails is shaped by it. Every network of influence conceals its own logic, a lattice of desires, fears, ambitions, and loyalties that shift with the slightest pressure. The ruler must perceive it as a map of currents beneath a placid surface, understanding that stability is always conditional and obedience always negotiable. Every smile may mask calculation. Every deferential nod may carry intent. Every silence may conceal plotting. To lead is to read these currents, to anticipate them, and to act with decisiveness that transforms potential chaos into a chain of consequence favorable to one's design. Betrayal is inevitable, yet it is neither chaotic nor unpredictable when properly anticipated. Those who mistake fidelity as a natural condition fail to perceive the architecture of human desire. Loyalty is not a gift. It is constructed through a combination of reward, fear, and perception. To wield it effectively, the ruler must balance indulgence with discipline, encouragement with deterrence, visibility with subtlety. Even treachery can become a tool when foreseen, employed to remove obstacles, consolidate power, or manipulate perception. To ignore it is to invite ruin. To master it is to wield inevitability. Ambition is a flame that burns indiscriminately, and the ruler must guide it lest it consume the very structure it fuels. Channeling ambition, both one's own and that of others, requires strategy, discernment, and patience. Unchecked, it destabilizes. Guided, it becomes the engine of consolidation. Every subordinate, every rival, every ally carries potential energy. To succeed is to convert it into momentum for calculated ends. Manipulation is not malice. It is the alignment of reality with purpose. Every word, gesture, and omission becomes a lever of consequence. Every perception, an instrument of control. Fear and incentive operate in tandem, the twin levers of influence. Fear sharpens attention, demands compliance, and establishes respect. Incentive cultivates loyalty, encourages initiative, and binds action to the ruler's strategy. Understanding the precise balance is critical. Too much fear and loyalty collapses under resentment. Too much indulgence and control dissolves into chaos. The ruler must manipulate these forces with subtlety and precision, aware that human nature is reactive, self-interested, and never consistent. To govern is to engineer the conditions under which ambition and fear intersect to produce obedience and alignment with strategy. Calculation is the antidote to chaos. Every outcome, every success, every apparent stroke of fortune is the result of layered observation, anticipation, and decisive action. Luck exists only in the minds of the unprepared. The vigilant perceive the network of cause and effect in which every decision resonates, every gesture ripples, and every omission reverberates. Opportunity is never spontaneous. It is constructed through foresight, timing, and the relentless orchestration of circumstance. To surrender to chance is to relinquish power. To master calculation is to command reality itself. Information is the currency of authority. Knowledge of intentions, observation of behavior, and interpretation of subtle signals create leverage. The ruler who cannot synthesize this information is blind. The ruler who can is sovereign. Networks of communication, reputation, influence, and perception are the modern arenas of power. Timing, precision, and anticipation transform these tools into dominance. Hesitation forfeits advantage. Clarity and decisive action consolidate it. Control requires perpetual vigilance, a mind attuned to the subtle mechanics of influence and capable of acting before opportunity solidifies in the hands of rivals. The theater of governance is a performance in which appearances are as powerful as deeds. Every alliance is a negotiation of perception, every gesture a signal of intent, every decision a vector through which influence flows. Misinterpretation is dangerous. Clarity in signaling strengthens authority. The ruler must understand that the world responds not only to reality, but to its perception of reality. By shaping perception, the ruler bends events, preempts opposition, and constructs inevitability. Virtue is a tool, not an end. Appearance is strategy, not illusion. To master these dimensions is to master consequence. Success, in its purest form, is structural rather than moral. Every alliance, every contract, every engagement is a node in a network of cause and effect. The ruler who fails to see these connections mistakes loyalty for obedience, trust for inevitability, and opportunity for accident. To survive and thrive, one must integrate observation, anticipation, and decisive action into a continuous architecture of strategy. Every decision carries weight. Every miscalculation invites collapse. The mind that perceives all vectors and acts with precision transforms circumstance into power, unpredictability into inevitability. Control demands both flexibility and consistency. The ruler must respond to shifting circumstances while maintaining the integrity of long-term strategy. Every signal, every reaction, every interaction must be measured for its consequence. Patterns of behavior must be anticipated, narratives must be constructed, perception must be curated. In this disciplined orchestration, human nature, capricious, ambitious, and self-interested, becomes a predictable instrument rather than an unpredictable threat. The ruler who internalizes this principle converts the volatility of ambition into the machinery of power. Every alliance carries its hidden tension, every promise its silent cost. The ruler must perceive the subtle contradictions that exist within every bond, the unspoken ambitions that lie beneath every expression of loyalty. To lead is to balance these forces, to orchestrate them without pause, to ensure that each individual's self-interest aligns with the broader architecture of strategy. Nothing is natural, everything is constructed. Trust must be earned through demonstration, maintained through vigilance, and reinforced by circumstance. The slightest lapse invites exploitation. The smallest misjudgment becomes a wedge through which rivals can gain leverage. Betrayal is a constant shadow, its presence unavoidable, yet its impact contingent upon foresight. Those who anticipate it convert threat into instrument, turning disloyalty into a vector of opportunity. The prudent ruler studies the motives of allies and adversaries alike, measures their desires, and understands the fragility of human commitment. Every betrayal foreseen is a potential tool. Every treachery unanticipated is a catastrophe. Mastery of this dynamic requires detachment, clarity, and the willingness to act with precision when the currents of self-interest shift. To hesitate is to invite collapse. To act decisively is to shape inevitability. Ambition is both fuel and hazard, a force to be channeled with vigilance. The ruler who ignores the ambitions of others, or of their own mind, courts disorder. The ruler who harnesses ambition directs it toward objectives, monitors its excesses, and mitigates its dangers. Every subordinate, every rival, every ally harbors potential energy. To succeed is to convert it into momentum that consolidates authority and secures influence. Manipulation is the mechanism through which alignment occurs, the tool that transforms desire into serviceable action. Words, gestures, and silences become levers of consequence, perception a battlefield as potent as any physical confrontation. Fear and reward are instruments of governance, deployed in tandem to shape behavior and guide allegiance. Fear demands attention and enforces compliance. Reward cultivates loyalty and incentivizes initiative. Their balance is critical. Excessive fear breeds resentment. Unchecked indulgence weakens authority. The ruler must calibrate these forces, understanding the mutable nature of human desire and the variability of response. To govern effectively is to engineer conditions where fear and incentive intersect, producing obedience, alignment, and the appearance of natural loyalty. Those who ignore this principle mistake moral preference for strategic efficacy and are swiftly undone. Calculation is the antidote to illusion. Every outcome, every apparent stroke of fortune is the product of observation, anticipation, and decisive action. Luck exists only in the minds of the unprepared. The vigilant ruler perceives the network of cause and effect, recognizing that every decision propagates consequences, every gesture resonates through human perception, and every omission carries the weight of potential threat. Opportunity is never spontaneous. It is constructed, cultivated, and seized through foresight and the orchestration of circumstance. To rely on chance is to surrender sovereignty. To command circumstance through strategy is to assert dominion over reality. Information is the currency of modern power. Knowledge of intentions, observation of behavior, and interpretation of subtle cues provide leverage invisible to those who rely on instinct alone. The ruler who cannot synthesize this data is blind. The ruler who can is sovereign. Networks of communication, perception, reputation, and influence constitute the arenas in which modern power is exercised. Timing, precision, and anticipation convert these instruments into dominance. Hesitation forfeits advantage. Clarity and decisive action consolidate it. The mind attuned to these currents transforms volatility into control. The theater of governance is a performance in which perception carries as much weight as action. Every alliance, every gesture, every statement contributes to the architecture of influence. Misinterpretation is perilous. Clarity in signaling strengthens authority. The ruler must manipulate perception to align with strategy, bending reality toward inevitability. Virtue is neither moral nor sacred. It is a tool, Appearance is a strategy, not an illusion. Those who master this dimension do not rely on the goodwill of others. They shape the framework within which events unfold, turning potential chaos into predictable outcome. Success is structural, not ethical. Every engagement, spoken or unspoken, exists within a network of cause and effect. The ruler who fails to perceive these connections misjudges loyalty, overestimates trust, and underestimates the fragility of circumstance. To survive is to integrate observation, anticipation, and decisive action into a continuous framework of strategy. Every choice carries consequence. Every miscalculation is an invitation to collapse. The mind that perceives all vectors and acts with precision transforms uncertainty into dominion, instability into inevitability. Control requires both flexibility and consistency. The ruler must adapt to shifting circumstances while maintaining the integrity of long-term strategy. Every signal, reaction, and interaction must be measured for consequence. Patterns of behavior are anticipated, narratives constructed, perception curated. Human nature volatile, self-interested, ambitious, becomes predictable when examined through the lens of calculation. The ruler who internalizes this principle converts volatility into leverage, uncertainty into the machinery of power, and human instinct into instruments of influence. Every move in the realm of power ripples beyond its apparent scope. Decisions made in isolation are illusions. Consequences travel along hidden channels, touching allies, rivals, and even those who appear neutral. The ruler who ignores these undercurrents exposes themselves to unseen fractures, while the one who anticipates them bends circumstance to purpose. Every action, however small, carries weight. Every hesitation invites exploitation. To govern is to recognize that reality is neither static nor forgiving, and that mastery demands perpetual vigilance and unflinching clarity. Betrayal exists not as anomaly but as inevitability. Those who serve faithfully today may conspire tomorrow. Those who rejoice in your ascendancy may conspire in your vulnerability. Anticipation is the armor against collapse. The ruler who understands this converts potential threats into instruments, converting treachery into leverage, danger into opportunity. Observation and foresight transform instability into control. Even disloyalty, once properly understood, can be redirected to serve strategy, revealing the ruler who acts decisively as the architect of consequence rather than the victim of circumstance. Ambition is a double-edged force. It drives individuals toward achievement, yet, when left unchecked, it consumes indiscriminately. The ruler must harness it with discipline, guiding the ambitions of others while regulating their own. Every subordinate, every rival, every ally contains potential energy, and success emerges from converting that energy into momentum aligned with strategic purpose. Manipulation is not malevolent indulgence. It is alignment of reality with intent. Every gesture, every word, every silence is a lever, every perception a battlefield, and every outcome the product of precise orchestration. Fear and reward operate as complementary levers. Fear sharpens focus, enforces compliance, and establishes respect. Reward cultivates loyalty, inspires initiative, and binds action to strategy. Mastery lies in balance. Too much fear engenders resentment. Too much indulgence dissolves control. The ruler must calibrate these forces meticulously, understanding that human behavior is guided by self-interest, capricious, and rarely principled. Governance is the art of engineering conditions in which these forces intersect, producing obedience, alignment, and the appearance of natural loyalty. Calculation is the only antidote to illusion. Every victory, every stroke of apparent fortune, is the product of foresight, anticipation, and decisive action. Luck exists only in the minds of the unprepared. The vigilant ruler perceives the network of cause and effect, recognizing that every choice propagates consequences, every gesture resonates, and every omission carries latent threat. Opportunity is never spontaneous. It is created, nurtured, and seized through deliberate orchestration. Surrender to chance is abdication of sovereignty. Mastery of calculation is dominion over circumstance. Information is the foundation of authority. Knowledge of intentions, subtle observation, and accurate interpretation of behavior constitute leverage invisible to the inattentive. The ruler who cannot gather, synthesize, and act on this intelligence is blind. The ruler who can is sovereign. Networks of perception, communication, and influence are arenas in which modern power is exercised. Timing, precision, and anticipation convert information into dominance. Hesitation forfeits advantage. Clarity and decisive action consolidate it. The mind attuned to these currents transforms unpredictability into control. The theater of governance is a performance in which perception wields equal power to action. Every alliance, gesture, and declaration contributes to the architecture of influence. Misinterpretation is fatal. Clarity in signaling strengthens authority. The ruler must manipulate perception to align with strategic design, bending reality to inevitability. Virtue is instrumental, not sacred. Appearance is strategy, not illusion. Those who master this domain command the narrative of events, shaping outcomes and turning potential chaos into predictable consequence. Success is structural, not moral. Every engagement, explicit or tacit, exists within a network of cause and effect. The ruler who fails to perceive these connections overestimates loyalty, miscalculates trust, and underestimates fragility. To survive is to integrate observation, anticipation, and decisive action into a continuous architecture of strategy. Every choice bears consequence. Every misjudgment invites collapse. The mind that perceives all vectors and acts with precision transforms uncertainty into dominion, instability into inevitability. Control demands flexibility within consistency. The ruler adapts to shifting circumstances while maintaining the integrity of overarching strategy. Signals, reactions, and interactions are measured for consequence. Patterns of behavior are anticipated, narratives constructed, perception curated. Human nature volatile, ambitious, and self-interested becomes an instrument under the scrutiny of calculation. The ruler who internalizes this principle converts unpredictability into leverage, chaos into the machinery of power, and instinct into a tool of governance. Every network of influence conceals currents that are invisible to the inattentive eye. Alliances shift like wind over water. Loyalties waver with circumstance. Ambition simmers beneath calm surfaces. The ruler must perceive these hidden patterns, understanding that stability is conditional and that obedience is always negotiable. Every gesture, every word, every silence carries weight far beyond its apparent significance. Hesitation invites exploitation. Indecision is the architect of downfall. To govern is to transform observation into anticipation, anticipation into action, and action into the inevitable shaping of circumstance. Betrayal is constant, a shadow that walks beside ambition and desire. Those who assume fidelity is natural, that loyalty is inherent, misunderstand the architecture of human motive. Trust is constructed, maintained, and enforced through consequence, reward, and subtle intimidation. To anticipate treachery is to neutralize it or convert it into advantage. Every act of disloyalty, once understood, becomes a tool of influence, a lever to remove obstacles or manipulate perception. Inaction in the face of shifting loyalty is surrender. Decisive intervention converts threat into instrument. Ambition is both asset and hazard. Unchecked, it destabilizes. Channeled, it accelerates consolidation of authority. Every subordinate, every rival, every ally carries latent potential. Success emerges from the ruler's ability to convert this energy into momentum, aligned with strategic purpose. Manipulation is the mechanism of alignment, not malice for its own sake. Every gesture, every statement, every calculated omission becomes a lever of consequence. Perception is a battlefield as potent as action. The ruler who commands both secures dominance. The one who fails is swept aside. Fear and reward are twin levers of influence. Fear demands attention, enforces compliance, and establishes respect. Reward cultivates loyalty, motivates initiative, and binds action to strategy. Mastery lies in balance. Excessive fear produces resentment. Unchecked indulgence dissolves authority. The ruler must engineer the intersection of these forces with precision, understanding that human behavior is guided by self-interest, volatility, and ambition. Governance is the orchestration of conditions in which these forces produce obedience, alignment, and the appearance of natural loyalty. Calculation is the shield against illusion. Every success, every stroke of apparent fortune emerges from observation, anticipation, and decisive action. Luck exists only in the minds of the unprepared. The vigilant ruler perceives the web of cause and effect, recognizes that every decision propagates consequence, every gesture resonates, and every omission carries latent threat. Opportunity is not spontaneous. It is created, cultivated, and seized through strategic orchestration. Reliance on chance is abdication. Mastery of calculation is dominion over reality. Information is the currency of authority. Knowledge of intentions, observation of behavior, and interpretation of subtle signals confer leverage invisible to those guided by instinct alone. The ruler who cannot process and act on intelligence is blind. The ruler who can is sovereign. Networks of influence, channels of perception, and flows of reputation are the arenas of modern power. Timing, precision, and anticipation transform these instruments into dominance. Hesitation surrenders advantage, clarity and action consolidate it. Awareness converts volatility into control. The theater of governance is performance, where perception wields as much force as action. Every alliance, gesture, or pronouncement contributes to the architecture of influence. Misinterpretation is fatal. Clarity strengthens authority. The ruler must manipulate perception to align with strategy, bending reality toward inevitability. Virtue is instrumental, not sacred. Appearance is strategy, not illusion. Mastery of perception allows the ruler to shape events, converting potential chaos into predictable consequence. Success is structural, not ethical. Every engagement, whether explicit or tacit, exists in a network of cause and effect. The ruler who fails to perceive these connections misjudges loyalty, overestimates trust, and underestimates fragility. To survive and consolidate, one must integrate observation, anticipation, and decisive action into a continuous architecture of strategy. Every choice bears consequence. Every misjudgment invites collapse. Precision transforms uncertainty into dominion, instability into inevitability. Control demands flexibility within consistency. The ruler adapts to changing circumstances while safeguarding overarching strategy. Every signal, every reaction, every interaction is assessed for consequence. Patterns are anticipated, narratives constructed, perception curated. Human nature volatile, ambitious, self-interested, becomes predictable under calculation. Every gesture, every word, every silence carries consequence. The world observes with unblinking attention, even when the observer is unaware. Alliances shift like tides, loyalty ebbs and flows, and ambition simmers beneath calm faces. The ruler must perceive these patterns, understand their logic, and act with deliberate precision. Stability is conditional, obedience is negotiable, and hesitation is the architect of downfall. To govern is to transform observation into anticipation, anticipation into action, and action into the shaping of inevitability. Betrayal is neither accident nor anomaly, it is constant. Those who assume loyalty as natural misunderstand human nature. Trust must be constructed, maintained, and enforced through reward, fear, and demonstration of consequence. To anticipate treachery is to neutralize it or convert it into advantage. Every act of disloyalty, once comprehended, becomes a lever of influence, a tool to remove obstacles, manipulate perception, or consolidate authority. Inaction in the presence of shifting allegiance is surrender. Decisive action converts threat into instrument. Ambition is a force that can be harnessed or left to consume. The ruler who ignores ambition courts instability. The ruler who channels it accelerates consolidation of power. Every subordinate, every rival, every ally carries potential energy. The ruler converts it into momentum aligned with strategic objectives. Manipulation is the mechanism of alignment, not cruelty for its own sake. Every word, every gesture, every omission becomes a lever of consequence. Perception is a battlefield as vital as action. The one who commands both secures dominance. The one who fails is swept aside. Fear and reward are instruments of control. Fear demands attention, enforces compliance, and establishes respect. Reward cultivates loyalty, motivates initiative, and binds action to strategy. Mastery lies in balance. Excessive fear breeds resentment. Indulgence without discipline dissolves authority. The ruler must calibrate these forces meticulously, engineering conditions in which fear and reward intersect to produce obedience, alignment, and the appearance of natural loyalty. Understanding human behavior as self-interested and volatile is essential to strategic governance. Calculation is the only antidote to illusion. Every success, every stroke of apparent fortune emerges from foresight, observation, and decisive action. Luck exists only in the minds of the unprepared. The vigilant ruler perceives the network of cause and effect, recognizing that every decision propagates consequence, every gesture resonates, and every omission carries latent risk. Opportunity is never spontaneous. It is constructed, cultivated, and seized through strategy. Reliance on chance is abdication. Mastery of calculation is dominion over reality. Information is the currency of authority. Knowledge of intention, observation of behavior, and interpretation of subtle cues confer leverage invisible to those guided by instinct alone. The ruler who cannot process and act on intelligence is blind. The ruler who can is sovereign. Networks of influence, channels of perception, and flows of reputation constitute the arenas of modern power. Timing, precision, and anticipation convert these instruments into dominance. Hesitation forfeits advantage. Clarity and decisive action consolidate it. Awareness transforms volatility into control. The theater of governance is performance, where perception wields as much power as action. Every alliance, gesture, and declaration contributes to the architecture of influence. Misinterpretation is fatal. Clarity strengthens authority. The ruler must manipulate perception to align with strategy, bending reality toward inevitability. Virtue is instrumental, not sacred. Appearance is strategy, not illusion. Mastery of perception allows the ruler to shape events, converting potential chaos into predictable consequence. Success is structural, not ethical. Every engagement, explicit or tacit, exists in a network of cause and effect. The ruler who fails to perceive these connections misjudges loyalty, overestimates trust, and underestimates fragility. To survive and consolidate, one must integrate observation, anticipation, and decisive action into a continuous architecture of strategy. Every choice bears consequence. Every misjudgment invites collapse. Precision transforms uncertainty into dominion, instability into inevitability. Control requires flexibility within consistency. The ruler adapts to shifting circumstances while safeguarding overarching strategy. Every signal, reaction, and interaction is measured for consequence. Patterns are anticipated, narratives constructed, perception curated. Human nature volatile, ambitious, self-interested, becomes instrument under scrutiny. Every human interaction carries hidden weight. Every alliance conceals potential fracture. Every expression of loyalty masks ambition. The ruler who fails to perceive these undercurrents surrenders to circumstance. The ruler who perceives them transforms volatility into instrument. Stability is conditional. Obedience is negotiable. Hesitation invites exploitation. To govern is to convert observation into anticipation, anticipation into strategy, and strategy into inevitable consequence. Every act, every word, every silence becomes a lever in the architecture of control. Betrayal is constant, and its inevitability is neither moral nor personal. It is structural. Those who presume fidelity is natural misunderstand the architecture of human desire. Loyalty is constructed, maintained, and enforced through calculated demonstration of reward, fear, and consequence. To anticipate treachery is to neutralize it or convert it into advantage. Every disloyal act, once comprehended, becomes a tool, a lever to remove obstacles, manipulate perception, or consolidate authority. Inaction in the face of shifting allegiance is surrender. Decisive intervention converts threat into instrument. Ambition is a force that drives and destroys alike. Unchecked, it destabilizes. Channeled, it consolidates authority. Every subordinate, rival, and ally harbors potential energy. Success emerges from the ruler's ability to convert this energy into momentum aligned with strategic objectives. Manipulation is alignment of reality with intent, not cruelty for its own sake. Every gesture, statement, or calculated omission becomes a lever of consequence. Perception is a battlefield as potent as action. Those who master both secure dominance. Those who fail are swept aside. Fear and reward are the twin engines of influence. Fear commands attention, enforces compliance, and establishes respect. Reward cultivates loyalty, inspires initiative, and binds action to strategy. Mastery lies in precise calibration. Too much fear engenders resentment. Too much indulgence dissolves authority. The ruler engineers conditions where these forces intersect to produce obedience, alignment, and the semblance of natural loyalty. Understanding that human behavior is guided by self-interest and volatility is essential to sustaining influence. Calculation is the shield against illusion. Every victory, every apparent stroke of fortune arises from foresight, observation, and decisive action. Luck exists only in the minds of the unprepared. The vigilant ruler perceives the network of cause and effect, recognizing that every decision propagates consequence, every gesture resonates, and every omission carries latent threat. Opportunity is never spontaneous. It is cultivated, constructed, and seized through deliberate orchestration. Reliance on chance is abdication. Mastery of calculation is dominion over reality. Information is the currency of authority. Knowledge of intention, observation of behavior, and interpretation of subtle cues provide leverage invisible to those guided by instinct alone. The ruler who cannot synthesize and act on intelligence is blind. The ruler who can is sovereign. Networks of influence, channels of perception, and flows of reputation constitute arenas in which modern power is exercised. Timing, precision, and anticipation convert these tools into dominance. Hesitation relinquishes advantage. Clarity and action consolidate it. Awareness converts volatility into control. The theater of governance is performance, where perception wields as much force as action. Every alliance, gesture, and pronouncement contributes to the architecture of influence. Misinterpretation is fatal. Clarity strengthens authority. The ruler manipulates perception to align with strategy, bending reality toward inevitability. Virtue is instrumental, not sacred. Appearance is strategy, not illusion. Mastery of perception allows the ruler to shape events, turning potential chaos into predictable consequence. Success is structural, not ethical. Every engagement, explicit or tacit, exists in a network of cause and effect. The ruler who fails to perceive these connections misjudges loyalty, overestimates trust, and underestimates fragility. Survival and consolidation demand integration of observation, anticipation, and decisive action into a continuous architecture of strategy. Every choice carries consequence. Every misjudgment invites collapse. Precision transforms uncertainty into dominion, instability into inevitability. Control requires both flexibility and consistency. The ruler adapts to shifting circumstances while preserving overarching strategy. Every signal, reaction, and interaction is measured for consequence. Patterns are anticipated, narratives constructed, perception curated. Human nature volatile, ambitious, self-interested becomes an instrument under scrutiny. Every opportunity contains its own risk, and every risk contains opportunity. The ruler who hesitates allows circumstance to dictate outcome. The ruler who perceives, calculates, and acts transforms uncertainty into inevitability. Human nature is a lattice of desires, fears, and ambitions, shifting beneath appearances of calm and loyalty. To govern is to map these currents, to anticipate their movements, and to intervene with precision before chaos solidifies into opposition. Observation without action is useless. Action without observation is recklessness. Power is maintained through the relentless alignment of knowledge, timing, and execution. Betrayal is never an anomaly. It is the constant companion of ambition. To ignore it is to invite disaster. The ruler who studies motives, monitors desires, and anticipates disloyalty converts threat into instrument. Every act of treachery, once foreseen, becomes leverage, a tool to remove obstacles, consolidate influence, or manipulate perception. Indecision in the face of shifting allegiances is surrender. Decisive action converts instability into advantage. Those who understand this principle see treachery not as moral failing, but as inevitable movement within the architecture of human ambition. Ambition is the fire that drives and consumes. Left unchecked, it destabilizes. Channeled with care, it consolidates authority. Every subordinate, every rival, every ally carries latent energy. Success emerges from the ruler's capacity to harness and direct that energy towards strategic objectives. Manipulation is the instrument of alignment, not cruelty for its own sake. Every gesture, every word, every omission becomes a lever of consequence. Perception is a battlefield as significant as action itself. The ruler who commands both secures dominance. The one who fails is swept aside by circumstance and the ambitions of others. Fear and reward are twin mechanisms of control. Fear enforces attention, compliance, and respect. Reward cultivates loyalty, initiative, and alignment with strategy. Mastery lies in balance. Excessive fear generates resentment. Unchecked indulgence dissolves authority. The ruler engineers circumstances in which these forces intersect to produce obedience and alignment, creating the appearance of natural loyalty. To succeed, one must recognize human behavior as self-interested, mutable, and guided by ambition, then orchestrate conditions that direct it towards strategic ends. Calculation is the antidote to illusion. Every victory, every stroke of apparent fortune is born from foresight, observation, and decisive action. Luck exists only in the minds of the unprepared. The vigilant ruler perceives the network of cause and effect, understanding that every decision propagates consequence, every gesture resonates, and every omission carries latent threat. Opportunity is never spontaneous. It is cultivated, constructed, and seized through deliberate orchestration. Reliance on chance is abdication. Mastery of calculation is dominion over reality itself. Information is the lifeblood of authority. Knowledge of intention, careful observation, and interpretation of subtle cues confer leverage invisible to those guided by instinct alone. The ruler who cannot process and act upon intelligence is blind. The ruler who can wield sovereignty. Networks of influence, channels of perception, and flows of reputation constitute the arenas of modern power. Timing, precision, and anticipation convert these tools into dominance. Hesitation forfeits advantage, clarity and decisive action consolidate it. Awareness transforms volatility into control. The theater of governance is performance, in which perception wields as much power as action. Every alliance, gesture, and pronouncement contributes to the architecture of influence. Misinterpretation is fatal. Clarity strengthens authority. The ruler manipulates perception to align with strategy, bending reality toward inevitability. Virtue is instrumental, not sacred. Appearance is strategy, not illusion. Mastery of perception allows the ruler to shape events, converting potential chaos into predictable consequence, turning uncertainty into leverage. Success is structural, not ethical. Every engagement, whether explicit or tacit, exists in a network of cause and effect. The ruler who fails to perceive these connections misjudges loyalty, overestimates trust, and underestimates fragility. Survival demands integration of observation, anticipation, and decisive action into a continuous architecture of strategy. Every choice carries weight, every miscalculation invites collapse. Precision converts uncertainty into dominion, instability into inevitability, and volatility into instrument. Control requires both flexibility and consistency. The ruler adapts to shifting circumstances while maintaining overarching strategy. Every signal, reaction, and interaction is measured for consequence. Patterns are anticipated, narratives constructed, perception curated. Human nature volatile, ambitious, self-interested, becomes an instrument under scrutiny. Every empire of influence, every dominion of power, eventually returns to a single truth. Nothing endures without calculation. Nothing prospers without foresight. The ruler who believes in luck is blind to the currents beneath the surface, deaf to the whispers of ambition, and oblivious to the machinery of consequence. Mastery is not a gift. It is the deliberate orchestration of perception, action, and timing. To act without anticipation is to invite collapse. To anticipate without action is to squander advantage. Success is neither fortuitous nor ephemeral. It is the product of relentless calculation, disciplined observation, and the courage to act when hesitation would be fatal. Those who would endure must embrace the inevitability of betrayal, the constancy of ambition, and the mutability of loyalty. Every human is a vector of desire, fear, and self-interest, and the wise ruler converts these forces into instruments, channels them toward purpose, and neutralizes threat before it manifests. Appearances, perception, and timing are as vital as force. The theater of governance is as real as the battlefield, and the mind that commands it is both architect and executor. Power is maintained not by virtue, not by hope, and never by luck. It is maintained by mastery, precision, and unwavering calculation. In the end, the ruler who survives, who ascends, who shapes reality to their will, understands that success is the child of intellect applied without compromise. Chance is the refuge of the weak. Foresight is the domain of the strong. To master power is to master oneself, to anticipate every move, to act decisively, and to see the world as it is, not as one wishes it to be. Every victory is constructed, every influence measured, and every legacy forged through unflinching discipline. Those who embrace this truth do not wait for fortune, they create it, and in that creation lies the ultimate dominion, control over circumstance, mastery over men, and the undeniable inevitability of calculated success.